Hello, my name is Laurel Rutledge. I am the CEO of LaurelRutledge.com, the creator of the Rutledge Perspective podcast, and now I am the host of the Rutledge Perspective on KCOH TV, The Boost, and I am so excited. My background in human resources and also in business and consulting has given me the opportunity to share information with all of you, and what we're going to do is talk about the foundational pieces, whether or not you're building a business or you're building a career. It all comes down to strategy and people. If you don't know where you're going, how do you know who needs to be on your team? So please join me, join in the conversation, catch the show both on the radio, on the app, and also on Facebook. And I will be on Tuesdays from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Thank you so much for listening. I look forward to seeing you there. Good morning. Good morning. It is Talk It Out Tuesday on the Rutledge Perspective. And so I'm going to do my normal stuff and then we're going to get into it. Good morning, Carlsbad, California. So let me do my stuff first and then we're going to get into today. We're talking about leadership in a time of crisis 2.0. So first of all, vote. Got my vote necklace on again today. Can y'all see that? Vote. Okay. So some primaries that are coming up today. If you are in DC, Indiana, Iowa, Maryland, Montana, New Mexico, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, or South Dakota, your primaries are happening today. Good morning, Houston. Your primaries are happening today. Hopefully you got registered and you are able to vote. Please do that in your local and national. It's not just the national presidential primary, guys. There is local stuff happening. There is state stuff happening. Go out and vote. That's today, voting day. Census 2020, that's still out there. Please fill out your census. I think I saw something that said the lowest return rate right now for the census is in Louisiana. Come on, y'all. This is really important. As we're seeing now, representation matters. Representation matters. So make sure you are filling out your census, please, because it's important to do that. And then for Texas, we do have some primaries that are coming up on June 15th. You have to be registered by June 15th in order to vote in the primaries. Good morning, Oklahoma. You have to be registered by June 15th to vote in the primaries that are coming up in Texas. So please make sure you are registered. Do what you need to do to register. And then remember your taxes. Now you got a month and a half. We got a reprieve until July 15th. So you got a month and a half to get your taxes finished. So don't forget to do your taxes. Now, today is Blackout Tuesday. Good morning, Houston. Today is Blackout Tuesday. And as I posted, I am still remaining socially in service. So that's why you're seeing me here in my black. I wish I could have found my black pants, but I cleaned out my closet and don't know what happened. So, but I am doing Blackout Tuesday and being financially only spending my money today with black-owned businesses. Blackout Tuesday. There is another Blackout Tuesday 2020 that's happening on July 7th, 2020. Yeah. So mostly media is blacked out today. Mostly media is blacked out today. Like dance studios, Miller is blacked out today. Miller Outdoor that's here in Houston. Some of the music studios. Yeah. So I'm participating in Blackout Tuesday. Good morning, Denver. So that's, it's important. And so I'm wearing this mask today. So you saw me in this mask last week, or a mask similar to this last week that has the little ivy. So I'm representing Rho Iota Omega, Odessa, Texas. Whoop, whoop. This is by Burning Sands. And I'm going to tell you guys a quick story about Burning Sands because it goes to the stuff we've been talking about. People will remember how you treat them. Burning Sands is a black-owned business. The owner is a Newt. And they do a lot of things, but right now they're doing masks and some other things that have the insignia of the Divine Nine. I am encouraging everyone to do business with Burning Sands. And here's why. I bought my first mask from Burning Sands and you guys saw me wear it. And the design was okay, but it didn't quite work. Like it's sit in my lashes and I kept messing with it and all that kind of stuff. And so I just sent them a note. Now, when you order from them, they send you a note and they say, hey, we like communication, so we're going to communicate with you. And, here's your order. We put it in the mail. Here's the tracking number. They do all that kind of stuff. And then they let you know, hey, it supposedly was delivered. So be sure and check on it. So I went, picked it up, had some design things. I sent a message to their customer service. And I said, hey, number one, love the communication. Love it, love it, love it. Thank you for letting me know that my order's coming, that you got it. Confirming that I got it. Just want to give you a little bit of feedback. And I said, I love the design. However, it looks like it needs to be down a little bit around the eyes because it's sitting in my lashes. And I said, that's the only thing I want to say. I said, I'm not asking for anything else. The person responded within a couple of hours and said, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Let's just send you a new one. I said, no. You don't have to send me anything free. I said, I'm a small owned business too. I don't expect you to be giving up product. I just wanted you guys to know, because if you're talking in it, if you're doing a lot of stuff in it, the design just makes it hard because it gets in your eyes. Okay. She came back to me again about an hour and a half later and said, hey, I just talked to my boss and we are going to send you a new design. Let us know what you think. And I was like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And so I got it. And this is the first time I'm wearing the new design. I tried it on, but first time I'm wearing the new design. And I just sent them a note yesterday and said, you know what? This is what I'm talking about.
That's it.
This is what I'm talking about. Because I was very clear. One, if you got comments, I believe in making comments good and bad. So if somebody gives you bad service, you definitely need to let them know. But if somebody gives you good service, you need to let them know that too. Because very rarely do we say good things. So for them to have been as communicative as they were, which was awesome, and then for them to say, you know what, but we want you to be happy, so here's what we're going to do to make you happy, was a whole different thing, right? And so I told them, I said, I'm going to call you out on my show. So I don't know if they're listening or not. If so, great. If not, that's okay, because it wasn't for that. It's an example to say, this is someone who owns a small business, who cares enough about the people that are buying their product, and who had the wherewithal and the customer service heart to say, we want you to be happy and we want your feedback. And by the way, I wasn't nasty in my feedback, because that's another piece. If you just rip people all the time, why would they even help? Because what's the point? Because I sent the feedback because I thought I really liked this and I want it to work, right? So burningsands.com. Thank you, Leela. She posted that. Good morning, Carlsbad. Burningsands.com. They have some great stuff on there. They've got several different versions. This is a version that has a little seam in the front. And so just black-owned business. If you're going to buy a mask today, go to burningsands.com. And there are many other places, but this one I know personally. All right.
Burningsands.com.
Burningsands.com. And this week I am doing a webinar as well. So we'll do another webinar this week, Taking the Panic Out of Pandemic webinar on Thursday, 12 noon Pacific, 2 p.m. Central. I'm actually doing a recap of all the first 5. So if you missed the first ones, I'm going to talk about the key points that they gave us in the first 5 that all of my guests gave us. So I'm going to do a recap on Thursday. So we'll do that for about an hour, and then I'll take all your questions. So please join me. It is free. Go to don'tpanic.laurelrutledge.com. I need you to reserve your spot because I like to close the meeting once everybody gets on who's registered, just so we don't get Zoom bombed. So that's happening. And also remember, you can work with me. Go to laurelrutledge.com and just pick your path. Just set up a call. The calls are free. Or you can text. I make it easy. Text LEAD 2020 to 474747. And let's just get on the phone. Okay. So, it's been a rough few days. It's been a really rough few days. And those of you who know me, and then those of you who have started getting to know me, those of you who have worked with me, those of you who've heard me on the radio, know that one thing that I talk about a lot is being authentic and standing in integrity. And I also talk about, servant leadership, how you show up, when you show up, what you say, how your actions and words need to align, and when they don't, what that says to people. And so as I really thought about coming in here today, because I got to admit, I was hot last night. Hot. I haven't been that angry in a very long time. And I had a long conversation with my brother this morning, because we talk almost every day. And I told him, I said, I'm going to do this show. And I talked to my girls yesterday. I'm like, y'all, I need some prayer tomorrow because I can't get on the radio and show out. And thank you, my prayer sisters, because y'all know I need it. But when I was talking to my brother this morning, I said, I just don't know. And he said, look, he said, I get it. He said, but the difference between you and me, he said, you are so much more like Dad, because you would see Dad and he would start saying something. You could tell he was hot. You could tell it in his face. You could tell it in his stature, but it was a quiet, burning anger that still enabled him to be clear, enabled him to communicate in a way that got his message across, but it was also very clear that this was not, that playtime was over. He said, and you have a way of doing that. I'm like, well, from your mouth to God's ears this morning, because it's just not okay. It's not okay. And when I talk about leadership in the time of crisis, like 2.0, we've been talking about all this stuff around COVID, right? And how we bring people back, and the amount of change that people need to go through, and the amount of compassion we need to have for people, because they are in many people are in a difficult space. And even if you've not lost your job, or you aren't having a hard time feeding your family, or whatever, you've been working at home. You may have been right up under your significant other for the first time in a long time, and y'all are struggling with that. Or you're around your kids 24/7 and you just need a break. You just don't know. Everybody's got something. And yet, now, what people are dealing with is even heavier. And let me rephrase that. What Black people are dealing with is heavier. And what makes it heavier is that it is not new, and we are tired. Yep. We are tired. And so for those of you in leadership positions, those of you who are, whether it's leading a business, or whether you're leading a team, or whether you're leading a function, whether you're leading a nonprofit, whatever you are leading, if you're just leading a group of folks, please don't start your conversation with, are you okay? Because I'm telling you, the answer to that question is no. I am not. And the reason I say don't start your conversation with that question is because you need to dig deep about why you're asking that question. Are you asking if someone's okay out of genuine concern, or are you asking, like most, let me rephrase that because that's not fair, like many leaders in corporate America, are you asking that question because you want to make sure you go on record as having shown compassion? Because if that's the reason you're asking, you don't really care and you don't really want to know. So don't ask. This is a time to stand in authenticity, and to stand in integrity, and to stand in courage. Because people know the difference when someone is asking out of concern, when someone is asking what they can do because they really want to take action, and when someone is doing it from a passive aggressive perspective, or they're just saying, oh, I'm just so sorry. No. Just no. Not today. And so when we are looking at how we lead through this, people are in pain, people are discouraged, people are upset, and people are grieving. And when I say upset, I mean angry. I mean angry, because we have been, for decades, and I'm gonna speak for me, and I know a lot of people who've been through this as well, but I'm gonna speak for me, have been showing up for decades, every day at 110%.
Yes.
Because that's what we're supposed to do. Have been going into meetings, listening to passive aggressive comments. And let me tell you, just because you smile when you say something ugly doesn't make it nice. Let me say that again. Just because you smile when you say something ugly does not make it nice. So please don't believe that the people you're talking to are stupid. We are far from stupid. What we are is knowledgeable and trained and strategic enough to know we have got to pick battles. And I, for one, am tired of picking that battle. I'm tired of picking the battle that says making you comfortable is more important than respecting me. And don't get me wrong, if you listen to my podcast, I talk a lot about relationships and how when you show up, it's really not about you. Servant leadership is not about you. Building relationships is not about you. It's about the other person feeling comfortable, about the other person getting to know who you are. Those are the realities of working in this world today. Those are the realities, especially if you are in an organization or in an area of the country that is not very diverse and their people don't have the same level of interaction or understanding of people that don't look like them. And for those of us that are people of color, we do know the difference. So I need us to be honest too. We can't just go off on everybody, because there are people who are genuinely allies. People who are genuinely as outraged and disgusted and irritated and upset and angry as we are. And those are the people we want to stand with or have stand with us to take action. And I don't mean stealing stuff, breaking stuff, burning stuff. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is making systemic change to the organizations and the institutions that have been built this way. This is not by accident. They have been built this way. And as my brother and I talked this morning as well, a lot of this is just fear. It is fear of loss of power. It is fear of loss of what I've got. It is fear of loss of what I'm comfortable with. For everybody. For everybody. This is not just about some groups of people. And yes, we have marginalized folks, right? We have people on the far right. We have people on the far left. We have all of the kind of the radical movements. Those do exist. They've existed for years. Mm-hmm. Where I'm at least feeling a little bit of hope is I'm seeing more and more people, more and more leaders who are those moderate middle people who are saying, yeah, this isn't okay. There is no longer, it doesn't appear to be as much silence as there used to be. Because silence is consent, y'all. Silence is consent. What is it? Desmond Tutu says, if you're silent in the face of injustice, you are complicit, right? Or you're on the side of the oppressor. Yes. Yeah. If you are silent in the face of injustice, you are on the side of the oppressor. This is not the time to be silent. You don't have to be crazy. You don't have to be nasty. You don't have to do any of that stuff. But if you are sitting in a meeting and you see that your colleague is being dismissed, they're not being listened to, crazy jokes are being made, and they are sitting in silence, or they're not responding, or they're shutting down, say something. You see something, say something. Because your silence is giving support to that person who's behaving badly. That person who is perpetuating this environment that says some people are unworthy. And it's not okay. And this is a time for leadership. This is a time for those people of good conscience to stand up. So if you are a leader and you're going into your business today, or you're having your Zoom call with your team today, are you calling out your person of color saying, oh, you got on a head wrap today? Are you calling on everyone else in your team and then the person of color last, or the woman last? Are you listening to what they say? They give really great examples. They give great input. They have great ideas. There's something that's really masterful. You dismiss it. Someone else who is not a person of color says the exact same thing, and all of a sudden it's genius. What message are you sending by your behavior? Folks, this is not new. People look at your behavior more than your words. So if you're saying, no, I support, and we need equity, and we need inclusion, and we need diversity, and I want a diversity of thought, and I want everybody on my team, and yet the people who don't look like you don't have a voice, that's not diversity, that's not equity, and that's not inclusion. That's not what that is. Because all of those pieces fit together. So if you truly are looking at leading through this time of crisis, what you are doing is acknowledging people are tired. People are hurt. People are angry. People are fearful. Mothers of Black sons are on edge. Mothers of Black sons are on edge. What do you tell your kid now? Right? The rhetoric we all used to get was, if you get stopped, be still, put your hands up, don't say anything, don't talk back. That doesn't matter anymore.
Right.
So what's the story now so that you know the men you love are coming home? And as I posted, I have a lot of men in my life who I love dearly. Dearly. And I just pray for coverage every day because I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen. And I got to say, I worry about some of them more than others because some of them might be just a little bit off. The Rutledge gene is real, y'all. So I'm just saying, you know, there are a few men in my life that are pretty tolerant until they are not. So if you come at them crazy, be prepared. And I also need you to be prepared if you come to any person of color in this day and time.
That's right.
With a lack of sincerity, with a false sense of seriousness about the issue that is happening, with an inability to be compassionate, even if you don't understand, even if you don't really get it. We are all human. And the key to leadership is that leadership is about the people you are leading. It is not about you. It is not about you. Leadership is about the people you are leading. And so as you build your businesses, as you look at your teams and bring your teams forward and bring people back from this COVID craziness and have people coming back into the fold, be mindful. Be mindful that there are folks who are truly, truly scared to leave their homes.
Yeah.
There are people who don't know, can I go to the store? Can I go to the post office? Can I get in my car?
Yeah.
I talked to somebody the other day that said, oh my gosh, you know, I need to clean out my garage because I need to make sure both of my cars are in my garage because if something happens and I need to get out of here and both my cars are outside, we can't get out. What kind of conversation is that? In 2020, in what is supposed to be the richest nation, the most diverse nation in the world, right? So for leaders, step back a minute, put yourself in the other person's shoes and say, if it were me, if it were my son, if it were my daughter, if it's my kid's best friend, what can I do, even if I don't know how to act to solve the problem? How can I act to not make it worse? Or how can I act to bring some level of peace and safety and understanding to these people about whom I'm concerned?
Yeah.
Right? It's not rocket science. It is difficult because it is human and we have to admit our own biases. And that includes those of us who are people of color. We have to admit our own biases too. Right? We have to admit our assumptions when someone asks us a question that they're not coming from a right place. We have to admit our biases that we are just going to assume that someone else is assuming that we're stealing something, right? So if we walk in with the expectation that it's going to be ugly, it will manifest ugly. Good morning, West Texas. It's going to be ugly if we expect it to be ugly. We have a better chance for it to be good if we at least go in with the expectation that it's going to be good. Manifestation of good. Because I don't believe, at the end of the day, as angry as I am, as upset as I am, as fearful as I am, at the end of the day, I don't believe people start out their day, most people, don't start out their day with the intent to harm someone else. I just don't believe that. That's not how I live my life. I live my life glass half full. And I just don't believe that people start out to hurt others. And I couldn't do what I do if I did believe that. But I also believe that when people get stressed out, when people get afraid, when people get concerned, when people don't know what to do, they go into survival mode. And sometimes survival mode means I'm going to make sure to protect me, even if that means hurting you. And right, wrong, or indifferent, the outcome sometimes is protecting me while you get hurt. So we need to really dig deep around what our own biases are, especially in this time, because those are showing up tenfold. Our own biases become blatant and visible and become part of our action when we are stressed and uncertain and fearful. It's survival mode. It's the human instinct, right? That whole fight or flight. It's what we do as human beings. But we don't have to. We don't have to. We have a choice. Because that's the other thing about being human. We have free will. We have a choice. We can choose to respond with hate, or we can choose to respond with love. I choose to respond with love. This is Bishop Curry always said. The greatest thing is love. Mm-hmm. Right? So I choose to respond with love. That doesn't mean I'm not angry. That doesn't mean I'm not fearful. That doesn't mean I'm not upset. That doesn't mean that we may not have a heated discussion because our points of view are different. But it does mean that I'm going to at least do my best to come at a situation that says, it is important for me to understand somebody else's perspective, because if I don't understand their perspective, how do I understand the strength and truth of my own?
That's true.
And that's one of the reasons why my show is called The Rutledge Perspective, my blog is called The Rutledge Perspective, my podcast is called The Rutledge Perspective, because in my mind, it's all a matter of perspective. Change your perspective, change your circumstances. And how do I know what my truth is if I've never listened to anyone else's perspective? And I would much rather understand your position and know what to do with that and be prepared for that than to not. And the only way I know your position is to talk to you. So don't be afraid to talk to people. Just be mindful of the conversation that you're having. Again, we are not okay. We're not okay. We're tired. We're exhausted. We are ready for this to be different. Yeah, over, right? And I heard somebody say the other day, every generation goes through this. Like it's cyclical. It's cyclical. And if you think about it, it's like there always has to be something almost catastrophic to right things again. And if you look, those who don't know history are doomed to repeat it, right? Every time things get really off kilter, there is something really big that sets it right.
Yes.
Always something really big that sets it right. And again, for me, the idea that people who may have remained silent before are no longer silent. They don't feel like it's okay to be silent anymore.
Yeah.
I'm having to stand up because, we got to move, y'all.
Mm-hmm.
It's no longer okay to be silent, right? It is really important to speak your truth and to speak truth to power. And that is a big piece of leadership. And so I want to specifically talk to any of my HR colleagues that are out there right now. As a former senior HR executive, as someone who spent a lot of time in HR, as someone who spent a lot of time, even before formal HR roles, leading people, counseling people, working with executives, senior level executives, if you are in HR and you are silent, I need you to think about something else to do.
Ooh.
And I mean that. And that something could be, you know what, I'm going to go educate myself because my silence is because I don't know what to do. I can absolutely appreciate that. If your silence is because you either just don't care, you don't think it's important, or you just don't have the courage to speak up, it is time to do something different. Because people are counting on you to be the conscious of the alignment between actions and words. People are counting on you to call out the discrepancies, because here's the deal. If you are in HR, you know that person that's been telling crazy jokes for 20 years.
Yep.
You know that leader that refuses to put women or people of color on their project and always has a reason why that person is not ready. You know the people who are refusing to hire people that don't look like them because they're not qualified or they're not ready. You know. And if you are not speaking truth to power, if you don't have the courage to speak truth to power, this is a time for you to really self-evaluate and determine what you really want to do and where you really need to be. Because HR is not it. You cannot be a successful and I mean truly successful. I don't mean just keeping your job.
Yeah.
You cannot be a successful human resources professional if you do not have courage and if you are not willing to speak truth to power. It is not possible. So HR people, from one HR person to another, this is time for you to step up. Step up or step off.
Yeah.
Because if you're silent, you're complicit. You are enabling your organization to continue to support an environment that is not inclusive. And that courage can be dangerous. I'm not pretending it's not. And I'm not pretending that people don't need jobs. And I'm not pretending that we all are in a space at some point in our lives where we really need the job we have.
Yeah.
But if that's the case, then find a way, because if you're in HR, then you also know the culture of your organization. Find a way to speak up in a way that makes sense and is heard in your organization. There are lots of ways to say things. There are lots of ways to get things out. You don't have to call somebody out publicly. You can pull people aside and have a separate meeting. You know, as they always say, praise in public, criticize in private. Pull somebody aside, pull their coattails, as people say, right? As my granny used to say, somebody needs to pull your coattails,
Pull their coattails.
right? Don't allow the kind of bias that results in disparate treatment to continue. Because here's the deal. And this is the power that people are talking about with the Blackout Tuesday, about the dollars in communities of color, and in particular in the Black community. Because money speaks.
It does.
Money speaks. Right, wrong, or indifferent, money speaks. And so for you organizations that have decided that it's just not quite important enough to do something different, I need you to get ready to open your checkbook, because people are tired. And the people who have been putting up with the passive-aggressive statements, the jokes at the sales meetings, the refusal to enable opportunities for jobs, these people have been watching, they've been paying attention, and most likely in this day and age, they've been taking notes. And they're not setting out to hurt you or hurt your organization, but I'm telling you, people are tired. And they've most likely been talking to you, or talking to your HR person, or talking to somebody about what's going on. And the longer that you've remained silent or have brushed it under the rug, the more likely they are to just kind of be building this up and building this frustration up. And there is a probability that it will wind up in some kind of claim that you will then have to defend.
Can I pose a question?
Absolutely.
The question is, because it was asked the other day on Facebook, I saw a couple of friends and they were saying, what is Blackout Tuesday? What is it going to do? Some people were complaining, one day ain't going to do nothing. I've seen a lot of people, I went to the Randalls by my home, and the Bath and Body Works was packed to capacity, and there were people all around the building to go buy Bath and Body Works. Like, wow, man, y'all spend money. I'm not mad at that, but what does this, like today, there's 2 blackouts, correct?
Right.
I heard about the one that's coming up in June.
July 7th.
July the 7th. What is this one about today?
So many of the media companies today did a Blackout Tuesday. So like I saw one this morning, dance studios, Miller Outdoor, places like that, kind of media, artistic, those kind of things are saying Blackout Tuesday. We're not going to be on social media. We're not having events, none of that kind of stuff on Blackout Tuesday. So there's an artistic blackout that's happening.
Okay.
I think Apple is doing it too, Apple Music, all that kind of stuff. So because India Irie posted, hey, they're doing blackout, but please remember those of us who are artists of color too. If it's because the real point of the economic blackout is not spending dollars, but spending dollars in Black-owned businesses, spending dollars on artists of color, in particular Black artists. So it's targeting your dollars, because we have a lot of money in our community. Clearly, we act like we don't, but we do.
So money is still being spent, but we're choosing to buy.
We choose to spend it other places.
Okay.
And here's something that happened a long time ago. And my cousins, if they're listening, they'll remember this. So my grandmother, my paternal grandmother, Palestine, Texas, way deep East Texas, right? When she passed away, we were all at her house. And this side of my family, well, both sides of my family really, we have a tendency when we all get together is you have conversations. You sit around and you just talk. I mean, and it's deep, like deep and wide, right? So we talk about everything, and it can get kind of heated, but it's real conversation about real stuff. And I remember when my dad was growing up, on Saturdays we go riding. And my brother and I used to hate it. Because it was really, now as I'm older, I'm like, that was giving my mama a break. And so we go riding with my dad, and what we do is go visit all these old people. And we considered old people. And we go, and then my dad would sit with them, and they just talk for hours. And when you're a kid, you're like, oh, Lord, can we just go? You know? But you don't realize how much of that's being absorbed. So at my grandmother's funeral, we were all at her house, and there was this man. So this was in 92 or 94. And this man had to be in his 80s then. And we were all talking about a bunch of stuff, and then there was kind of this deference to him. And he said, he said two things. He said, I understand segregation. So you got to remember this man in 80s, remember, he was absolutely a child of the Depression and all this kind of stuff. And he said, I understand desegregation. I understand the premises behind that. I understand all of that. But we lost something as a community when we no longer had to only rely on ourselves. And then he said, and we are probably the only people that send our kids to our enemies to teach. Now, again, this is an 80-year-old man in 1992, right? But what I took away from that, and what I take away from that today, is there is a strength of community that I think we have forgotten. And when I say community with a big C. The community of people of color, the community of women, the community of disenfranchised people. There is a power and a connection in community that I think we've lost.
Yeah.
Because there's so much fear, there's so much disenfranchisement, there's so much, man, but if I support your movement, that means I'm not supporting mine. Or if I help you get what you need, that means I don't have any. What is that saying? It's not pie, right? If you don't get it and I get it, that doesn't mean you don't get anything.
Yeah.
There is plenty. This is not a scarcity scenario. There is plenty to go around. And so that issue of community, whether that's within your organization or whether that's in your actual community, the strength in that community is really important. That strength of understanding, that strength of support, that strength of shared experiences is really important as a baseline and as a village. I talk about all the time, my village, that place where you can go to get support, to get reinvigorated, right? That place where you can go, where you can have a conversation and you don't have to explain a thing because people know where you're coming from. That is so important. And I think what has been lost sometimes, especially in organizations. So I was talking to someone the other day, we were talking, and she happens to be in Minneapolis. And the same thing came up when I was doing a lot of work in Pittsburgh, when my corporate headquarters was in Pittsburgh at my last organization. And when you talk about bringing people in, especially people who are outside of the community or people in disenfranchised communities or other communities, and you're really trying to make efforts to get people to stay and create stickiness in organizations and in cities, in towns, in communities, in neighborhoods, if you don't take into account the connection of community, the people aren't going to stay in the organization. Because yes, you may have brought them into Pittsburgh from North Dakota or wherever, and they begin to build a work family. But if they go home and there's no one there, they don't have, the local restaurant to go to or their group that they hang out with on Fridays or, whatever their choice is around a faith practice. If there's nothing there that supports them beyond the folks that they just see every day at work, that doesn't create stickiness because there's no community. There's no community. And without community, there's no life. There's no survival. We need to have community. And so leaders, as you are looking at building your businesses and building your culture, what is your culture going to be? What is your value going to be? We've talked about that. What does what you do and what you say, how does that reflect the values that you want to instill in your business, and the customers that you want to support. And how are you building community, not only in your organization, but ensuring that the people that come to work for you have a community? Because if they are sticky and sticking in their community, then they're more likely to stick with you. And that enriches not only their community, but that enriches your organization. And so that ability to support people around everything that's going on, around and through and over and under and in, is the responsibility of good leaders.
Yes.
That doesn't mean you have to make everything right for everybody, right? That doesn't mean you have to pay everybody's rent and all that. That's not what I'm talking about. Support sometimes is simply demonstrating and expressing understanding. I understand that this is really tough. I also understand that there's no way I could possibly know what you are going through right now. But what I can do is honor the fact that you are going through it and make myself of service in helping you get through it in any way that is possible.
Can we bring this up? Yesterday, what we saw on the news, and the president stood up and he said he felt bad for the Floyd family, and all that was going on. And at the same token, you were seeing on a split screen the people being pushed back and tear gassed. Are you saying that leaders, your actions are going to have to match what your words are saying? And I think that what we saw on national television is how many people feel in the workplace.
Right.
You're saying you care about me, but there's been no action shown, and especially coming out of COVID and coming back, and you brought up a very good point that many people, I was driving into work today and I just knew it was going to be a lot of traffic, but lately there's been no traffic, even though it's been opened up.
Right.
What is that saying? That many people are not rushing back to where they used to work?
It is absolutely an example of the disconnect between words and actions. And people will believe what you do before they believe what you say. Because while words hurt, actions impact. So if you're telling me, I love you, I love you, I love you, and you're beating me in my head at the same time, well, wait, I don't understand, because you're hurting me. You're saying you love me, but you're hurting me. That's the definition of trauma, right? Gaslighting.
But when you bring that up, and I know we're talking about the people not going back to work, could it be that because so many people have said, no, it's not time, it's too soon, because we can't trust your word. You're saying it's safe to go back, and there's been no information, no directions of how to even do it.
Yeah, I thank you, Odessa. They're saying my audio isn't matching video. I'm not sure what that is. That's probably a technology issue. Hopefully it'll catch up. Yes, that disconnect is real. It's that's what makes it a challenge for people, because again, we talked about earlier too, communication. It is so important to communicate right now. It is so important to say, this is what we are doing and this is why. This is what we've decided not to do and this is why. You know, I had an attorney from California on my webinar last week, and she was saying the same thing. She said, you know, it's not a bad idea to get input from your employees. What are you thinking? What are you feeling? What are your biggest concerns? All of this kind of stuff, right? That's really important. But what she also said, which is the key for human resources people as well as business owners, is, but also be clear when you ask what people are concerned about, what they want, how they feel. Be really clear about what you intend or can do, because it doesn't mean that you can actually address everything that's a concern. And so if you pretend like you just tell me what you need and we're going to do that, but that's not what you're going to do, you have now done one more thing to undermine trust. So ask the questions and then come back to people and say, or actually tell them ahead of time, I want to know what you're thinking. And I also want to make it really clear that this will help form our ultimate plan, but we may not be able to do everything that everyone wants, either for financial circumstances or just from practicality purposes. But if you tell people up front, you're not setting the expectation that, oh, well, I told them that we need to go to a 3-day work week. And then when you don't go to a 3-day work week, they're like, well, wait a minute, they asked us. And now we're not going to a 3-day work week. So they didn't care, because the actions that they felt were, You asked me, I gave you, you didn't do. So they're feeling like you didn't listen. So you have to communicate up front. Why, wherefore, how come, this is why, this is not, this is good. Talk to people.
Yeah.
Talk to people. Leaders, this is the time to talk to people. And I don't mean talk at people. Talk to and with people. It is a two-way street. Communication is a two-way street. You want to listen to understand, not listen to respond. You want to listen to understand, not listen to respond. Especially now. Because people are tired. People are hurting. And people want to figure out how to make a change and to take action.
You know, you talk about talking truth to power, and I noticed that on the news on yesterday when one of the governors said to the president what his problem and issue was. He's very respectful, and he said, this is what it is. And then the reply back from leadership was, I don't like the way you do such
right.
right.
So, I saw that.
Yeah, so that's a lot of people that will not speak truth to power.
Right.
Because they've had and that's immaturity. You're not ready to lead if you cannot take criticism that is going to help get the team forward, and you're not willing to listen. So how does one who is on a job now say, I want to say something, but I'm afraid of the reaction?
It's very dictatorial, right? So we're seeing lots of examples, and not just with our ultimate leadership, but even in leadership with other organizations, right? We're seeing lots of examples of fantastic leadership and lots of examples of how not to do it. And thank you for the clarification, Odessa. I appreciate it. There are, as I say, you know, it's important to be authentic. It's important to be truthful. Don't ask if you don't want to know. Don't ask if you don't want to know. And so for those of you who are asking people to speak up, those leaders who sit in meetings and say, okay, tell me what you think. What do you think? How do you think? What are your ideas? I need you to sit with yourself, and I need you to review. And more importantly, I need you to go seek feedback from people who are in those meetings with you. And if your normal response is, oh, okay, we tried that already. Or, yeah, that's not going to work. I've seen that before. That's not going to work. You don't really mean that you want people's ideas. That's not what you mean. What you mean is you want to look like you're asking for input, but you want people to do what you want them to do. So own that, be honest about that, either change your behavior or don't, but either way, choices have consequences. And understand what that behavior does to undermine the trust in your team. If you are an individual and you're trying to figure out how to speak truth to power, there's a few things I would say, and this is going to sound like I'm contradicting myself. But everything is gray, right? It is important that you are able to speak your truth. It is really important that you're able to speak your truth, because the more you bury that, the more you walk away from that, the more you don't honor your truth, and the more you sit in that turmoil, the more it impacts not only just truly your physical health, but more it impacts your ability to perform the way you want to perform. And you need to really be clear on your culture, especially if you are a person of color or if you are a woman. You need to really understand the culture you're in, because you may, right, wrong, or indifferent, you may have to adjust the way in which you communicate your truth so that people hear your comments, your perspective, not your tone. So I know me. And at almost 52, I'm not going to get a poker face. I don't have one. I'm not going to get one. And quite frankly, I am too long in my career to go try to get one. I got other things that are more important to me. But since I know that, I can adjust the words that I use and the tone that I use so that what I say does not reflect what's on my face. Because the point is for me to be able to communicate my position. So I already know that there is bias against emotion in women, and in particular Black women. The whole mad Black woman syndrome, right? If you're emotional, if you're upset, if you have a stern position, if you are in a heated conversation, You're just emotional. People stop listening. They stop listening. They are no longer hearing what you're saying. They are watching your behavior, and they are dismissing your words and your comment because the only thing that they hear is your emotion and your tone. And you're right, Leela, shaming and blaming won't help. Right? So you can't come out and say when somebody gets emotional because they've been trying to tell you the same thing for decades. I just need you to calm down. It's not that serious. I can't tell you how many times I heard, it's not that serious. It's not that serious. It's okay. This is not heart surgery. Mm-hmm. Okay, tell me that when you're the one putting forth an idea that makes an impact and you're being dismissed. Right? So why am I over emotional and you're just passionate? Or you're just convicted? So leaders, this is a time to really dig deep. And I mean all leaders of all genders, all races, all leaders, because we all have some of this bias. It is important for you to be sure that your words reflect, that your actions and words are aligned. Because people watch your actions. And there are times when probably the people that give you the hardest time are people of color, giving other people of color the hardest time. And I don't mean the folks that are kind of in your circle who are like, look, let me pull your coattails after this meeting because that was not good. Or let's think about that. Or maybe you could, I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about those people that intentionally put up blocks because from their perspective, there's only room for one of us, whatever the us is. And since I got it, I got to protect it because if you show me up, then they'll take me out and give it to you. Fear. Remember I talked about that earlier. Fear. Fear is an interesting motivator.
When you talk about fear, and I hate to keep bringing this up because this is really what kind of the topic of the hour right now. Even what we saw on display when the president stood in front of the church to hold the Bible, he pulled the people in to join. And many of them looked uncomfortable. What do you do when you're in a work situation and you know this is a shipwreck, a train wreck, and you're being pulled in? Do you comply? Or is there at some point you're going to have to say, I'm not with that. I can't do that.
So before I answer that, let me give a counterpoint to that.
Okay.
There was a situation, and I absolutely cannot remember what state this was in because there's so much going on, where a police officer, there was a woman who was kneeling with her hands up. Mm-hmm. Kneeling with her hands up. A police officer came and pushed her down. Another police officer who happened to be black and female went to the police officer and said, not okay. And that police officer turned around, started walking away, and she followed him. And it's like, no. That's not what we do. And other police officers did the same thing, right? So I give you that counterexample to say, I am not naive enough to believe that it is always safe to speak truth to power. Mm-hmm. I know better. And I would be inauthentic if I sat up here in front of people and on this show and to the listeners and to the viewers and said, you just need to man up or woman up and just speak truth to power at all times. You need to, from my perspective, understand the difference between playing chess and playing checkers. Mm-hmm. And playing chess is about strategy. Mm-hmm. Long-term, invested strategy. So if you know it is not safe, whatever safe means at the time, for you to speak truth to power in that moment, that doesn't mean you never speak truth to power. That means you file that away and you find a time that you bring that up. It needs to be as close as possible because it's kind of like, this is going to sound so crazy, but it's kind of like when you're training your dog. Mm-hmm. If you come home and the dog has made a mess on the floor, you don't rub the dog's nose in it 8 hours after they did it. They don't get it. Right. Right? So you don't experience something and then 2 weeks later you're like, oh, and by the way, when you did this, right, this is what if nobody's going to remember that. So you need to respond to it as close to the circumstance as possible. But it's important to be strategic, because it's also very easy, especially if you have a culture that is a shoot the messenger type of culture, or a culture that is not conducive to speaking truth to power. You need to do it in a way that you know is safe for you and where you will be heard. Mm-hmm. And if it is truly a place that is not safe, again, I encourage you to start making a strategy. We've talked about that a lot before. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do until you can do what you want to do. Mm-hmm. But at least start making a strategy, because you know when you're in a situation that you need to not be in. Mm-hmm. And don't let someone else make you believe that you don't have a choice, because we all have choices. We all have choices. Now, choices have consequences, but we all have choices. And if you can at least plan, you put yourself in a position where your choice may be something that at least makes it better.
Yeah.
At least makes it makes it easier to tolerate. Right? So as you are trying to individually navigate this time that we're in, take heart. It is a really, really tough time. It's a tough time. And I, like many people, am angry. I'm frustrated. I'm irritated. I have a level of fear. And not necessarily fear for me, but fear for people that I love. And I am not broken. I am not broken. Because as long as he gives me another day, I'm going to do everything I can to be a solution and to act in a way that supports and moves forward. And I am not always going to be successful, because I'm not perfect. But my intent is to do better, because when we know better, we do better. And we all know that this is not okay. We know it's not okay. And for those of you who are truly wanting to stand in allyship with people, get educated. Get educated. Don't just go to that person and say, what can I do? How do I know? Where do I learn? Because not everyone is in a mindset right now to teach you. While they appreciate that you want to understand better and you want to educate yourself so you can act, not everyone is right now in a mindset to help you do that. And I would ask that you give them grace for that. So take the time. Do ask somebody. Don't sit in ignorance. Ask, but don't be offended if the person that you ask says, you know what, I can't right now.
That's good.
I can't right now. Love you, mean it, but I can't right now. I do not have the capacity to can, as they say. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Not today.
Because when you're in battle mode, you really don't have the time to train or to do whatever they are looking for.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean not ever.
Right.
It just means not now.
Right.
Because what you may need is something already qualified for this battle that we're now in. Because many companies are now in a battle of survival.
Yes.
In a battle of making sure their business don't get burned down.
Yes.
This is
and
like you said, I'm glad that you were transparent. This is fearful. This can make you nervous.
Yeah.
You don't stay there, but a lot of owners and business owners are truly worried. How am I going to keep the staff together?
Right.
How am I going to keep the lights on? So there are some things that they don't get offended. They just don't have the time to deal with right now.
Just don't have you just don't have the capacity. There's only so much that we can take. Wow. Any individual, there's only so much that you can take before you're just covered over. Wow. And most of us at some point in time have been there. You know, my friend Dina, who is probably one of the leading experts, although she doesn't believe it, one of the leading experts in the space of diversity, equity, and inclusion. She's incredible. Dina Clark, you need to follow her if you're not following her. And one of the things she always says is, remember that you don't know what battle the other person has fought when they come to work that day.
Yes.
You don't know or don't realize that when you get to work and you guys are all at the starting line at the beginning of that day to start running that sprint for that 8 hours, that they've already run 2 marathons just getting to your new starting line. So as we all try to figure this out, try to survive, and more than survive, try to thrive, and try to keep showing up. And that's why I posted today. I am going to continue to be socially present and serve, because it's important to do so from my perspective. We all need to not only give ourselves grace, but give grace to other people and understand that everyone is in a different position right now. There is a lot of fear right now. There's fear of COVID. There's fear of no COVID. There is all of the craziness around, do you believe it? Do you not believe it? Is it real? Is it not real? Why are we wearing masks? We shouldn't be wearing masks. Is there a vaccine? What about,
Really?
There is so much noise right now.
Really?
That you add on top of it what has happened the last few days and what has happened in who is really, the peaceful protests and how those are being hijacked, thank you, because I wasn't about to say a nice word, being hijacked by others who don't have the same interest. It's a lot for all of us to absorb. So we need to give ourselves grace. And I know yesterday, I had so much stuff to do yesterday. I think I was in bed at like 6.
3.
Because I couldn't.
Yeah.
I couldn't. And I just, and again, I haven't been that angry in a long time. And I committed as I did this show. And I just, Jerry, every day I'm like, I'm so thankful for having this platform. That I was going to show up because you guys are being so giving to me of showing up to listen and to watch and to support. So who am I to then decide it's just too hard today?
That's what makes a leader. Because it's not about us.
Because it's not about me. But what I am going to do, I am going to show up, but I'm also going to be honest and say, I am tired today. I am tired, I'm angry, I'm hurt, but I'm here. And I'm not done, and I'm not broken. And I'm not giving up the fight. Every once in a while, I'm just going to need a minute. I'm just going to need a minute. I'm going to need a minute to get myself together so that I can express myself and support those around me in a way that is productive and forward moving and not adding to all the craziness. Because right, wrong, or indifferent, I can be just as crazy
I can tell.
as everyone else. I'm just really good at hiding that piece.
I know. Paris Raven said, the masks are affecting my breathing, but I must wear it. She must wear it because it's not about her. She has a daycare.
Yeah.
Now, what would it be like if I say, I don't want to wear the mask because I just don't like it, but you can compromise little children.
Right.
And then it now does matter who you're affiliated with because let's say you're on this right side or whatever, and we decide we're not wearing masks, but you want to come back to work, and you've been moving around with no mask, and we believe in making sure the next person is safe.
Right.
How do you make that split? Because now those are two different.
Absolutely. And that's the challenge of businesses, right? Because businesses are having to find ways to ensure that their employees are safe, that people are safe when they come to work. And yet they are relying on the honesty and integrity of the people that they have in their businesses. If they are asking questions about, have you been exposed? Have you tested? And you're not being authentic, that's difficult. And again, I've had a lot of conversations with some lawyer friends of mine lately, and the challenge is how responsible are the businesses? Even Adrian on one of the webinars talked about, he said, tort reform. And what he meant was there's a movement to protect businesses in this area of COVID from class action suits related to COVID. From employees saying, well, I came to work and you didn't make it safe enough, so I caught it here. Now, on one side of that coin is, there are enough people For those of us who've been in corporate, there are enough people who would make that claim falsely just because.
Right.
So I understand businesses' desire to protect themselves from false claims.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, there are just as many businesses who will take as many shortcuts as possible just to get the revenue flowing again.
Mm-hmm.
And so unfortunately, all the people in the middle then get squeezed by which way we go.
Mm-hmm.
Because I do believe most businesses, most leaders, and if I didn't believe this, I don't know what I'd do. It's just the way my brain works. Glass half full. I believe that most businesses, I believe that most employees that come to work are wanting to do the right thing, wanting to serve people, wanting to be healthy, wanting to protect colleagues. I just believe that. I just believe that's the way people operate for the most part. And I believe that it's more important to plan for the 80 or to operate for the 80 and just plan for the 20. And when I mean plan for the 20, you just put in place responses so that and early detection signals. So for that 20%, you just know when it's starting to happen so you can respond appropriately. But operate your business for the 80% that are trying to do the right thing, not for the 20% that aren't.
That's good.
So I just encourage all of you in this time that we're in to ramp up your compassion. Ramp up your grace for yourself and for others. To refrain from your first question being, are you okay? Because the answer to that is no.
Can I really ask why would that be? Because that would normally be somebody's response. But when you said that, I could think of that because let's say you have been furloughed and you've been out of your job, you have a bunch of kids, and then to ask the question, are you okay? Well, you ought to know that there's some needs that I have, and I know that you're not really going to do anything about it. So that's what makes that a bad question?
So what makes it a bad question, or a less than ideal question, let's put it that way. Mm-hmm. Because there are some people who will say you're okay from a really authentic place. Okay. Right? Are you all right? And what I mean by saying don't start with are you okay right now, because the answer is no, especially if you're talking to black people. We're not all right.
Okay.
The better question is, what can I do for you? What can I do for you? And if it is within my power to do it, I am willing to do so.
That's good.
That's the better question in these times. Whether you're talking about somebody who has lost their job under COVID, whether they can't figure out what to do with their kids, whether their relationship may be falling apart because of whatever reason, whether, they're unable to eat, whatever the reason is, whether they have been one of the people who's lost family members to any kind of violence, whether it's police violence or other. What can I do to help you? And if it is in my power to do so, I will.
Floyd Mayweather stepped up and he's paying for the funeral.
Yeah.
And the brother said on the news yesterday, my brother wouldn't want all this violence. He wouldn't want all this.
Right.
Y'all
stop it.
Go vote.
Yeah.
Basically, he said, okay, thank you for protesting, but now do something else. Yeah. Go vote. And so to me, that would be in concern to still do what they don't want or say that the brother doesn't want. But the real need is pay for the funeral.
Yeah.
Because there are some things you can see as a real need that you can help there,
that you can support.
The valid work. There's something you can do instead of are you okay?
Right. There are some things you can do. And people understand that you can't do everything. Right? And that's why I say it is, what can I do for you? And if it's within my power to do so. I had someone say that to me the other day. I said, hey, can I ask you something? And their response to me was, absolutely, if I can. I said, can I ask you to do something for me? Absolutely, if I can. And I'm like, you know what? I appreciate that. Because if they couldn't, then I'm like, okay, I get it. But at least I asked. Yeah. Right? And so it's again, further acknowledgement that it is deeper than just, are you okay? It's deeper than that. Yeah. It's deeper than that. Because right now our nation is not okay. When we see all this stuff going on, we're just not okay. We're not okay. It's not okay. So let's ask a different question. How can we do better? What can we do to make it better? How can we impact change? Because this is about change. And most significant changes came through some sort of protest. Yeah. Right? Some sort of protest. Yeah. And so not looting and arson, but some sort of protest. Mostly peaceful protests, right? So be leaders. This is a time. This is still the time for leaders to step up. And you don't have to be leading the business or leading the department to be a leader. Leadership is not about position. Leadership is about action. And you don't have to have a title to be a leader. So I encourage you to see what you can do to help. I encourage you to educate yourself. Black folks too, educate yourself. What are the real issues? And register to vote. Vote, vote, vote. Local, state, regional, national, vote. Get registered. Those primaries that are happening today, go make it happen. Go make it happen. And thank you.
Fill out your census.
Thank you. Please fill out your census.
We're talking about that tomorrow, so definitely fill out.
Please fill out your census. You can do it online. You can do it in paper. I think eventually the field workers are going to be coming out at some point. But please fill out your census. So
now I did ask that question to a young lady that's going to be having a guest
Oh, good.
tomorrow. Because in times before COVID,
Yeah.
we did the field workers.
Yes.
Are they going to still do that?
So the last I heard, they had postponed it, but I had not heard that they had eliminated the field work. Now, again, this has gone on longer than anyone anticipated, so I don't know. That would be a great question to ask her tomorrow.
Yeah.
Is if she is aware of whether or not they are just going to completely eliminate it. I don't know.
Okay.
But that's one more way for people who are not getting it in the mail or can't get online or what have you to make sure everyone is counted. So, thank y'all for joining. Talk It Out Tuesday, the Rutledge Perspective. I truly appreciate it and appreciate the support. We're going to make it. We're going to make it. Have a great day.